wherever you're dialing in from, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I can see people coming from the States dialing in from Europe and elsewhere. So this episode, and we're absolutely delighted and looking forward to so much. It's with Dr. Marta Boeckenfeld, an absolute expert in the area of the platform economy. Also, I know Marta talks a lot about other topics such as ecosystems, and I've listened to some of those events. Also, the metaverse and how it ties in with this whole idea of the platform, the ecosystem, as well as digital transformation in general. So I think we're in for a treat today. So this series is part of the Disruptive Technology series from the Digital Transformation Lab. My name's Paddy O'Reilly. My co-host again today is Tony Moroney. Both of us are on the committee of the Digital Transformation Lab. The Digital Transformation Lab operates out of Cork University Business School here in UCC. So I suppose just to note, this session is being recorded. Also, all guests are more than welcome to ask questions. We'd be delighted for engagement, particularly through the chat or the Q&A features, where both myself and Tony will be keeping an eye on those and knitting those questions into the conversation we're having with Marta. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide here, and I'm not going to do justice to Marta by trying to introduce Marta. I'm going to leave Marta say a few words about herself. Welcome, Marta.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paddy. I'm super delighted and excited to join you today. So thanks for this brilliant introduction. So we will talk about my passion, which is platform ecosystems, and certainly the metaverse as the next evolution of platforms. As far as my background is concerned, I have around 20 years of very exciting financial services. I've been very fortunate because I could always dive into new topics which were really close to my heart. So the last couple of years I spent at UBS and was able to launch 2 platforms. So also there developing ecosystems, platforms, and that was another very interesting experience also for me, because developing a kind of startup within an incumbent has all kind of other challenges and opportunities, I would say. So I love to share my experiences today with you and talk about those topics.
That's lovely. And actually, even that raises lots of different areas that we can discuss, Marta. And I can see Tony getting excited even at the opportunity. Tony, I'm going to hand over to you and we'll let you out of the box in terms of asking those first questions.
Well, thank you, Paddy. Marta, great to have you here. A huge fan of the work you do. I've seen you present a few times, and I know we're going to have a great session. But look, let's put it in context. We called the session the platform economy. What is the platform economy and what do we mean by it?
Yeah, so it's a very big question. So I'm trying to answer it and maybe going back a little bit. So if you talk about platforms, then a lot of people are very confused. At least I know that from also management side, because they either think of platform as something which is very tech, or they think, okay, I digitize and then it's a platform. So if we look at a very famous example, you will all remember maybe, but some of you might also be too young to remember. We all started at some point in time to have this beautiful cameras, and we would go around and do the pictures. Then we would go home, come and sit with our family. And I think, Tony, you and I, we had this experience within the family where like half a year ago from the snow holidays, we were watching the dias, so the photos on the screen. Yeah, so that's obviously from an experience point of view, that was when we were child, not the most exciting experience. So the next level, I would say that was the analog area. The next level, as we all know, was digitizing those cameras. And very interesting here, because one of the famous cameras, Kodak, they somehow totally missed the train. They had some engineer who was developing this camera, and this engineer then developed this camera, presented it, and they were saying, yeah, it's all very nice, but it's far too slow, and we don't think it will be accepted by clients. At that time, also, there was no talk about user testing. So that's part of what also we will talk about, what is very important. They had no clue. And then we all know we had also digital camera. So we go from analog and digitization into a digital camera, which is very normal to us. But we are today already beyond a digital camera, because what we are using is a smartphone. And the smartphone is a real platform, if we think about it. It's not only because it has all the apps on it, but from an experience point of view, it does do everything for us in terms of taking our life to the next level. We are almost called, as you might have seen by some people, cyborgs, because we are glued to the smartphone. Yeah. So, and the Apple experience is amazing. So I'm a big Apple fan in all regards, because they do the design, they do the innovation and so on. But one should note is that Apple is not always the first. So also with a smartphone, in a way, they were not the first, because we had Nokia, mobile phones, and so on, but they were somehow the first to bring this innovation to us. Yeah, so because a lot of people now are curious about what will Apple do in the metaverse, yeah, and it's not quite clear, because they do lenses now. They bought certain companies, and they're not at the forefront. They said they want to do something, but they are not like Facebook and so on and so forth. So this is an example, I think, which demonstrates you go from analog to digital, and then you go to platform. Yeah, and now we can even go one step further. If you follow that route, there is a great book written, which you might know, from Erich Joachimsthaler. This book is called Interaction Field. And he says the next level for platforms is to really create an interaction. So let's think about an example again. Yeah, so one is obviously the smartphone, which everyone knows, which everyone uses. Another one is Amazon, where we have a lot of what he calls the interaction. But I want to bring something to you, which maybe is also close to everyone's heart, but it's not so obvious that a platform and interaction field is Lego. So every one of us has been playing Lego, I believe. Yeah. So Lego, also from the point of view, is it a product company? Is it a platform company? It's a platform company, and it creates an interaction field. Why? Because Lego is not about the product. It's not about the bricks putting it together. The purpose of Lego is really very close to their heart as well, to bring children and also to bring parents together and to create communication, to create social fair play. So that is really what the origin and in their whole tradition is. And what they have done is they have a nucleus created, which are the children and the parents. These are the participants of the platform, you can say, the prime participants in the nucleus. So if you look at the next level, you were also mentioning ecosystems. Around this is an ecosystem. So what is the ecosystem? They were certainly also thinking with whom we can team up, with who can also make this broader. And they teamed up with Tencent, for example, or with Minecraft. And if you yourself have children, or yourself are a bit younger than Tony and myself, you have done everything in Minecraft. So you created, you made social stories, and so on and so forth. So this is the ecosystem with third parties. So you can enrich the whole platform which you have created with the parents, the children, and the others. And then around this, which is also quite amazing, you have market makers. So you have also over 2 billion children under 15 who have no contact so far with Lego. So how you get them to be part of this, what we call the interaction field. So how do you get them to interact? So obviously Lego has done a lot in terms of innovation. They have, for example, Lego Ideas. Lego Ideas is brilliant because everyone, I can deliver ideas to them, what should be in Lego. So there was, for example, one woman who had this 5 astronaut women, and this idea had so much social recognition. So you also get a lot of feedback from the participants in this interaction field, so that Lego can create not only the product, but can create a new interaction. So platforms which work very well as a conclusions are platforms which are incredible interactive. And when we talk about interactive, what this also creates, what we say is network effects. So it's not just adding 1 + 1 is 2, but it's actually more. Because if I bring more ideas into this, if I bring more creators like children, and they do all these stories on YouTube. That is the Lego stories are the second most watched stories. So Lego is a fantastic example for creating network effects, because we all are interacting, we are partially creating, we are participating, we are maybe Tencent is part of the ecosystem. So you have to think about it as a whole field where everything is connected. And what this creates, what the exciting thing about it is exponential growth. So in normal products, so if Lego just does the Lego bricks, I mean, they would be dead already, and they were close to bankruptcy because it's a pipeline. So you push out just Lego, 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 like the other toy companies. But what they were able to create is beyond that. It's not just pushing it out, but creating this pull effect where everyone wants to be part of this interaction field. And that's the beauty of the platform economy, because you can create all these interactions. If you are able to pull this as nicely together as Lego does, they are still continuing to do that. And it's still growing. It's exponentially growing. So when we look at the big companies where I mentioned Apple, Facebook, and so on, out of the 10 biggest capitalized companies in the world, 8 are platform companies. And that doesn't come by surprise, because they are delivering this exponential growth because of this network effect.
And Marta, it's really interesting, and the Lego story, I am somewhat familiar with it, but I think at the essence of what you're saying is, look, traditional companies, they used to make, distribute, sell to end customers. The platform companies, they're actually creating this ecosystem of relationships where they're bringing the customer into the firm, and it's not the firm out, it's the customer in, and they're able to match up the different people within the ecosystem, and the whole thing works. You mentioned network effects. I mean, just how important are network effects?
They are super important. So if you're not able to create networks effect as I would call it an interaction field, because that's more than just a platform, then you are not part of the platform economy, because you cannot create this exponential growth. You are doing what everyone does. You are doing like a car, like BMW, you just sell cars. But also even BMW went beyond this now, because they are thinking about, it's no longer about selling a car, it's about mobility. So how can I help in people's life to have more in terms of mobility? How can I connect the different parts? It's again the same, again, like you have in other platform economies. How can I not only sell the car, but how can I make it easier for the driver to connect with others, like Tesla does? Tesla is, for me, is also one of the best examples for platform economy. Some people think it's about making an e-car, but it's not about making an e-car. It's about creating this interaction field, because you have a lot of different, let's say, Teslas, but they are all interconnected with each other. And what the ultimate target is, obviously, that you don't have to worry about traffic. Yes, it's also mobility, but it's also reducing your footprint. So there are a lot of different things. It's not only about the car. Then he has charging stations built himself, because this is part of the ecosystem. Then he works with regulators. This is also part of the ecosystem. So he is able to create a whole interaction field. And the beauty of that is also, when you talk about network effects, alone one car is not helpful, because he needs all the other cars and all the AI which is underlying it to connect with each other, and to also provide this information. How is the traffic? Where should I go? All this is combined. And how does a car react? So basically this whole service which he offers is learning whilst you are part of this. So you, as a user, you are not what is sometimes called in a Netflix doco, you are not a product, you are actually creating the value for that network. And that's very important. As soon as you are able to have participants who create the value in that platform or interaction field, as I would call it, then you can see really exponential growth.
Marta, would it be fair to say, like you mentioned Tesla, so the car industry, you had Ford, Toyota, all the big brands, and they competed with each other with new designs and this, that, and the other. And when Tesla came along, they said, well, it's just a car with a battery instead. But actually, it wasn't a car with a battery, it was a complete ecosystem. And also it's a clever car in that, you know, they're taking feedback from customers all the time and they can update the software on the car real time, etc.
Exactly.
So it's a completely different model.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think also some people miss it. I mean, just copying and doing an e-car is not making the difference. That's why I also mentioned the best capitalized firms, the most successful firms. If you look also at platform index versus normal index, it's always outperforming because they can demonstrate this value which the participants create and the effect of networks.
Yeah, and I love the idea that your definition of platform brings in the interaction field, Marta, because I think it's a very, very powerful way of looking at platforms. It's a way of really creating those interactions through maybe growing ecosystems. I've also heard you talk about how important it is for organizations really to refine or find the soul of the organization. Can we have platforms that have a soul? Because for some of us, we might say platforms seem quite soulless.
I completely agree that some platforms are soulless. And I would say that Facebook has a big problem right now. And Facebook knows this because they are on a decline. And one of the points why they are declining is obviously the misuse somehow of the participants, but more so, they are not really creating value for a participant. So right now, all the people who are younger age, I would say, they're no longer on Facebook. They're on Reddit and they're on Discord to exchange views, to create things together. Like if we look at the NFT market, which is now thriving as well. And Facebook has realized they have all the participants, they have all the data, they give you a little bit like Amazon does personalization, but otherwise they just use it for ads. Yeah. So this is not really interaction. This is not really the soul of a company. This is not something where you relate with. And what we have seen also, that's probably what you have seen when I had some statistics that brands need to have a soul. So they need like a Lego, a fair play. So what do they really want? Or like Tesla, it's not the e-car. He wants to reduce the carbon footprint. Yeah, and there's another company for the people in the US. It's also completely underestimated what value this company has is John Deere. So probably all know John Deere with the tractors. Again, they started as normal tractor business as a product, but what they have developed it to is amazing. So similar to a Tesla car, when you are a farmer, you have your whole, equipment there. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see you anymore, but okay. So it's similar to when you have a Tesla car, you have a lot of data because nowadays from this normal tractor, you have a complete AI in your tractor and you have sensors on the field. So you can, this is only digitization, I would say. So from my steps, analog to digitization. So they can see which crop is useful and so on and so forth. But what they have done now, they have connected, like Tesla, all the different John Deere tractors so that they can exchange information if someone is in the south or in the north of the US. So they know, okay, this soil is not really suitable, this crop is not really suitable, and so on. And on top of that, they again, so if we look at this, this is a nucleus of participants, they have created an ecosystem with BASF, Syngenta, to work with them, which crop, which soil, what works best. So they have better data from all the farmers. They are not directly in the nucleus. And they went even beyond that. They said, listen, my software is so valuable and it's more valuable if I also give it to farmers who have no John Deere. So they go to competitors. It's not only about the selling, but again, it's about this interaction field that you can create more if you work with each other. And that is something which is very origin also to our lives, I would say. We always survive when we are in a community, when we work together. And this is the same concept here. You work with competitors, you work with others, you work with regulators to create the interaction field. And why I mentioned John Deere, if you think about it also in India, in other places, we have a lot of problems with world hunger. We have a lot of problems with supply. Yeah, so if you are able to develop this, and they have also a platform which is called My John Deere, where all the data comes together, you can truly change the world. So this is not only on an ambition level, because you can better produce, more efficiently produce what is needed to stop world hunger, given that by 2050 we have 9.6 billion people. Yeah, so those companies, for me also, they are not looking at only let's do a tractor. They are looking at, okay, what can we do for the farmers? How can we change the world? How can we make the world a better place? And I do think that's very important now, also for consumers. More and more, they are asking themselves, or they are also rejecting companies like Facebook. I mean, for some people, Facebook, I'm not on Facebook because I totally reject what Facebook does. I admire them for also their innovation they do on Meta, but I'm very, very skeptical the value they create. Yeah, so for some people, they had so much stuff. And if you have seen the Netflix documentation, you also think, oh my God, I don't want to deal with them anymore. So there are a lot of people who go this direction. So really, as a company, you need to think about what you said. What's my soul, what I'm good for, and how can I add value to create a better world? I mean, it's a high ambition, but you know, who else can do it if not we? And also the big companies, I have to say, I would be surprised they can't do it. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's a very nice way again of categorize it, that really soul comes from the nature of those interactions, and whether there's a real genuine desire to create sort of co-value, value for the consumer as much. And it reminds me of something, I suppose, Marta, for me, you know, the first platforms were maybe the mid-90s, the eBays, the Amazons. Have companies like eBay and Amazon stayed up to speed with what's required now of a modern day platform, do you think?
I think only to a certain extent. So if we look at Amazon, Amazon is very, very successful still. We are so used to Amazon because we can push the button and that drives our experience. We have also personalization there, but the real value creation is a question mark. And obviously, as we know, Amazon is also squeezing the merchants and doing their Amazon Prime, taking the data for themselves. So they had a lot of competition recently from Shopify. And Shopify is incredibly successful now. They were like, whoa, you know, what's coming there? Because Shopify is not stealing, or you can say is not stealing the data to then do their own products. What they do is, again, similar to Alibaba, they help the merchants and the clients, and they help them to understand the merchant better and to provide also better services. So it's not like copy, this is what consumers want. That's why I make a special Amazon product. Great choice, Amazon. Yeah. So I do think that customers will switch if they have a good alternative. We have seen that on and on and on, but customers are also like, I mean, you and me, I know Amazon, I'm registered. Shopify is not yet here, so I can't use Shopify. But you have seen that with the growth of Shopify, consumers don't underestimate them. Yeah, if they don't like it and have something better, they move. So the more it is important that you are able to create this interaction flow, because the more connections you have and interactions you have with the consumer, and the more, again, what we said, value you can create, the more the consumer will not move.
And Marta, it's a bit of a chicken and egg in that, you know, if you want to create a platform, and you know, maybe you can start with, you know, get the merchants, but you won't have the customers, or maybe you can start with the customers and you don't have the merchants, because you need to get more merchants, get more customers, get more merchants, more customers. So is it hard for someone to look at some of these successful platforms and sort of say, no, actually, we can take these guys on, we can do this? Absolutely.
It's very hard. So the chicken and egg problem is a huge problem. Yeah. So you have to find a way. And that is like, I mean, the usual example is if you have one phone and you don't have another person calling you, then it's useless. So that is the same effect. So what's important is also the liquidity basically on the platform. You always have to balance it. So let's take an example with Uber. And there is certain also, like for Uber, there are certain you can say, levels where it makes no sense to add additional drivers. So Uber was also looking for drivers and looking for consumers. And you had, if consumers get very frustrated if you don't have a driver in time, but over time, if this grows, and let's say you have now with nearly all Ubers, you have like 2 minutes to wait, not more in general. If you add additional drivers and you have half a minute to wait, that makes zero difference to you. I mean, it's from a consumer point of view, adding more drivers is useless. But what Uber has done, they are no longer, from a purpose point of view also, what is their purpose? They are no longer a company which is just driving cars. Again, very smartly, they developed from this platform and added an ecosystem with partners, because they are now a service on demand. So they now have bicycles, they have scooters. This is the driving part, but as you know, they also have Uber Eats. So that's a great example of creating from a poor platform thinking, I have my driving. This is not enough for the interaction field. They need to have ecosystem partners. And they had lots of trouble also with regulators. So that's part of the ecosystem. You have to think about, what are my participants? Who can I add? What services, value creation I can have? So they are no longer a cab driver replacement. They are more of an on-demand service. And with that service, they can not only do Uber Eats, they can do anything. Yeah. So it totally changes the perspective. It changes the value creation. And therefore, just copying Uber for that driving part will not be sufficient.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it's the same for Airbnb. Airbnb has created this experiences, yeah. And again, who does those experiences, yeah? So it's not Airbnb. It's the participants create the experiences. And I've been joining some of the experiences. They are amazing. So if you go to a new place and you are in Airbnb or not, that is also a good point. You don't have to be in Airbnb to benefit from Airbnb experiences, because you can just join those experiences. Someone is saying, I know the city and I can take you around for not a lot of money. So it could be 1-to-1, 1-to-2. I do cooking classes in Italy, for example, for beautiful pasta, beautiful events. I mean, it's unbeatable because they are so personal. And again, this is something people really enjoy, because it's not like a normal restaurant. It's a soul. You can connect, you learn something, you are really in it, yeah. So it's all about the culture, it's about the soul, it's about the experience.
Yeah, and I think I saw Airbnb now want to go into a space where you can tell them what type of experience you want, and they will tell you where in the world they can deliver that experience for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so they do a lot of things which are creating the ecosystem. The other part of that, I also not to be underestimated, same for Uber, Airbnb, and others. In terms of what they give to the people who rent out. So they do all the logistics, they do all that part. And Uber also, they have all those poor drivers who have no clue about how to deal with the payroll, how to do with the services. So they do much more. It's not about the driving. It's really providing also participants in that ecosystem, in that nucleus, which is the first part of it, with added value so that they can thrive and have more success. And this is the same also which Alibaba does, which really Amazon doesn't do, because they keep everything for themselves. Alibaba gives all the analytics and so on. I mean, they obviously started also at a different place. I'm not saying Alibaba is the greatest, but it's a great example because they do things very differently. Same if we look at WeChat. WeChat is quite different from, for example, WhatsApp. Yeah, but if you look at WeChat, they are creating all these additional services. They're really part of your life, and you can almost say it's like a life coach.
And I'm intrigued by something you said at the start when you introduced yourself, Marta, and I know we've been sort of focused on the value to maybe the consumer or society in what we've been discussing so far, but I want to bring you back to a comment you passed when you were introducing yourself, which was, some of your background is with UBS, introducing platforms into an incumbent. I think your words were, "is not easy," as we know. How do we introduce this sort of platform mindset into more traditional organizations?
Yeah, so I think what is very important is that from the top level, you have the support. So the top level mindset is very important. So if you have a CEO who doesn't have a platform mindset, and I had a lot of discussions with other people in the industry about it, it's more than a challenge. You cannot do it because there are so many questions and hurdles to take, as you know, as you were just saying, from mindset and culture perspective, that it doesn't really work. But you will notice also that a lot of maybe management, the CEO, they might buy into platform. We have seen that at Barclays. I mean, there's a beautiful story. Barclays previous CEO gave an interview, and he said, I was so ignorant towards platforms. And then my CTO, he gave me this platform book, and he said, after a year, you must read this. Yeah. And it was so excitingly written. It's a true story. He was reading it on the book while going on holidays with his wife. He called his employee when he landed and said, oh my God, now I get it. Yeah. Because there were all these examples, Uber, Airbnb, and said, I just don't understand how we do this in a bank. Yeah. And so they started to think about it and change. And obviously what was not easy for them, and that is most for the incumbents, you need to somehow create an innovation hub or start up with an incumbent, and you need to separate it. Yeah, because that little thing can only thrive if you protect it, because all the others who are, and there will be a lot at the beginning, who are not for change and who say, oh, we are like hundreds of years old, like in Barclays' case. And if we do that, what will the market think? Because it's partially maybe also disrupting what you do today. So now what Barclays has developed, which is really beautiful, they have again done an ecosystem, and they have created an app which addresses life moments. So when you travel, it's not about only giving you a loan for travel, but it's where can you find a nice travel spot? So part of the ecosystem, finding the travel, finding the insurance. So really about which moments in your life are important. So going back even to Apple, is a very nice I would say, not only story, but experience at even Apple, where you think, wow, Apple is the most amazing and innovative. They had this separate department, which was even not in their building. I don't know if you know that. And they developed then the next level of the Mac, I think it was. And what they did, they had a big pirate flag behind them. And they were like the pirate of the Caribbean, the pirate of Apple. And that is very important, that you try to groom the pirates in your company, because they will all of a sudden be the pirates of the Caribbean, which conquer everything, but there will also be something other people will be drawn to. Yeah, so it's not first. A lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, separate is good. I don't want to deal with them." But then when they see the success and when they see everything is coming out, and obviously you have a lot of interactions because you have to work with the rest of the company, and there's so much value in it, you can draw more and more and more people in your pirate camp.
And Marta, you mentioned Kodak earlier, and as I understand it, it wasn't that they didn't understand the technology, it's just they tried to protect their existing business, so they just didn't want to go there. And then you look at someone like Amazon, and they sort of said, well, there's only so much product we can make, so let's sell everyone else's products. So is this around, giving leadership the confidence that actually there is a market that's going to be different but better, and if we don't go there, actually we run the risk that we become irrelevant?
Absolutely. And it's not only the let's say the leadership team is the first layer, but and then all the layers below, but it's the way you work. You have to change the entire corporate culture. You have to again think about what's your purpose. Your purpose is no longer just pushing the product out to clients. It's basically how can you create something together with the clients which is relevant to them. This is how platform thinking is, and as soon as this is in the mindset of the top and you have this, let's say the pirate camps, and maybe you have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 who then spread how it works, and everyone joins, and you get this turnaround. But I think also another challenge for incumbents is the shareholder view, because shareholders want something very quick. Whilst they see exponential growth, obviously exponential growth means growth. It doesn't mean profitability in the first 2-3 years. So you have to be patient, and you have to trial and fail, but never fail to try. So you have to really be always on like a real startup behavior, and you have to disrupt yourself. And that's what Jeff Bezos always said, disrupt yourself.
I mean, I'm going to ask you the banker question now. So like, if you're a new platform and you're sort of saying, well, actually, we're focused on growth, but we will be profitable in the long run. That's kind of a different space to an existing firm sort of saying, actually, we're going to crash our profitability for 3 years, but it's the right thing to do. How hard a sell is that to the marketplace?
I think it's not an easy, that's why I say shareholders, analysts like to have big profits immediately. But I do think if you do it like you can show, so for example, at UBS, we did our mortgage platform, yeah, and we had thriving mortgage platforms in Switzerland. We have right now, but just, I mean, they are now, we have a 1 trillion market. So for Swiss, we are only 9 million people, but the mortgage market is huge. We have 120 to 150 billion Swiss francs money in motion every year for renewal or new mortgages. And we have platforms where we have seen over the next 6 years, mortgage platforms, that they grow by 45 to 50%. So it's exponential, but they only have 4% of the entire market. Yeah. So you can say, yeah, you know, I can wait. But if you demonstrate that if you wait and you don't participate, you are like Kodak, like my first example, then I think it becomes much clearer, because nobody wants to be Kodak. Yeah, everyone wants to be Apple.
Yeah.
But it takes also hard numbers, financials to underpin. So you can't just say, oh yeah, I will grow, and no matter what it costs. And that's why it's also there very important. If you create those platforms, you have to create an ecosystem with partners. So you have to work with your competitors. We work with other platforms. So obviously, first, everyone is asking why you work with other platforms who offer the same that you offer. Yeah, because we all have the same target. We have those consumers. And if they on their platform providers don't have enough capacity, or they don't have the right mix, we can add, we can complement with each other. So that is, again, from the thinking of interaction field, I have a nucleus, I have an ecosystem, and I have market makers. And in the market makers, I have competitors, I have regulators, and I take them all in my interaction field to create this network effect.
Very nice model. And I can see some questions coming in here, and I'm just conscious maybe we feel some of these as well. So Paul is asking, what are the significant differences between B2C platforms and B2B ones?
Yeah, there is a very good question. So we have talked now a lot about B2C platforms. But if you think about B2B platforms, it's not much different, because you want also in a B2B as well as in a B2C, what's very important with any partner you interact, is it institutional investors or others, what's the value creation? And even in B2B, normally people start with a platform. They have also maybe a niche market. And what they can think about, what I've been talking about, and the examples we had are typical examples for what we call orchestrators. So these are platforms where you are the orchestrator and you orchestrate the interaction field. If you are B2B, you can obviously also think about implementing or teaming up and providing your services to another orchestrator. So as an example, if Goldman Sachs or ING has done this, they work with Amazon to provide credit to their customers, but it's basically a B2B relationship, and it's also a B2B platform which they are using. So you embed your services in other platforms. But to me, it's very clear that if you are not yourself a platform or you participate in other platforms, you don't have a valuable business model anymore. That's why we called it the game changer. But is like the World Economic Forum report, one of the reports says 70% of the growth and value creation in the next decade will come from platforms. Yeah. So either you are in or out, is my personal view.
That's right,
it's
yeah.
proven somehow also by statistics. So it's different in a way that you embed, for example, your services, but also the embedded finance market even is estimated to be 7 trillion. So how much you can do is amazing. So even if I'm an incumbent bank like ING, they do ecosystems platforms themselves, but they also embed their services. They are very smart in that they work with a company in Netherlands for Amazon to go, which is a similar thing. So they're testing a lot of things with other companies. They work hugely with partners. So I'm a great admirer of ING for that purpose.
Yeah, very provocative. So just to maybe restate it, that Marta's saying that if we have business models that aren't platform ready or platform enabled, really you're on the downward spiral from the get-go. Another question or comment here from Paul as well, actually, is Paul loved the comment liquidity on the platform, and it's so important. He's also stressing. Any more on this, Marta?
Yeah, I can give you a concrete example again, which is very like from a mortgage platform point of view. Yeah, a mortgage platform, you come in as consumer and you get offers for your mortgages from different parties, from pension funds, from insurance, and so on. And when we were running this, so what we were making sure when we started, you have to somehow make an estimate how many people might join and have a kind of liquidity pool, because you have to have those partners with you. But what you can also do with the partners, we had also a test run, so where we could feel the market. We had lots of over 500 user testings. But what you can also do, in particular for this liquidity pools where it's cash, you can say we start with like X million, a couple of million, but we are able to draw on more if we have to. So in this model, this works very nicely because you can talk to your partners. I mean, you certainly don't want from each of them like 50, 100 million in your bank account and they don't earn money. So you have to find ways where you can draw on additional, but this doesn't always work that nicely as I described. So it's one of the key challenges, but there are other ways in terms of doing it. You use distribution from other parties. So what we did as well to get more traction from clients, we extended the ecosystem to, or we created the ecosystem home and living. So in mortgage, people don't find it very boring to come to a bank for mortgages, but they have to do it because that's just what it is. They don't come always to platforms because they don't have the relationship and the confidence. But what we did is we had a partnership with which a company is called HomeGate. So on HomeGate, you Google, you search, and what we offered on HomeGate is every time I will see an apartment or a house, I will also get an offer from the platform. So it's non-binding, but I can immediately see, this could be it. Yeah. So you have this very often. So you have to also stretch out to that side to make sure you have enough customers. So you have to think about my ecosystem. How do I create it? Where is the customer in this, like Barclays, life of his moment? So he is not at a bank. He is searching for a house. And maybe before that, he's even saving money. So in a perfect home and living ecosystem, you would really go as far. And what Commonwealth of Australia, for example, did is superb. They are the best in digitization, and honestly also the best as far as even better than DBS in Singapore, because you go to a house, or you even do it on your screen. You go there with your mobile phone and you screen what it is, and they give you within half an hour a confirmed offer. So I mean, this is the kind of experience you want, because it's not so much about 100 credit checks, 30,000 papers. It's about, okay, I really love this house. Can I afford it? Can you give me a solid quote so that I can do it? Yeah.
And Marta, in that context, I mean, can you apply the thinking of sort of minimal viable ecosystem? So here's what I need to start with, but actually my plan is to go way beyond
totally,
that.
Totally. Yeah. So we started also with an MVP. So like for the mortgage platform. The very difficult market is obviously if you get new home buyers and new mortgages. So the first half year, what we did, we focused on those who are renewing their mortgages because they're already familiar with mortgages. You don't have to explain it much. They might not be so like I have to be with my relationship manager who explains everything to me. There might be more going to digital. And that was very good because that MVP, I almost felt like it's no MVP. I mean, it's an MVP because it has the smallest part, which is, okay, let's try this. During that time, we also added one partner, which was HomeGate. And then we had, over time, within a year's time, we had 20 partners. So exactly to what you said. So we developed a very clear roadmap. So let's start with this. And then we also then had an insurance partner later. So you start, also that is important for what Lego did, what John Deere did. Every time you do innovation or you do platform, you think about it in a way that you say, what am I good at? So what is my core competence? And in a bank, the core competence is not searching for a house, but your core competence is a mortgage. So that's what you start with.
Yeah, and Tony, you might remember or recall as well, over a year ago now, we had Hayden O'Shaughnessy in a session with us talking about digital ecosystems at the time. Now, unfortunately, Hayden died since, but Hayden will be sort of well remembered for having written books in sort of the Elastic Enterprise, I think was one of them. But I remember Hayden distinctly saying, and it was nearly a challenge to our audience, saying that the problem here is no longer business models. We know the business models need to be platform enabled. The challenge for lots of companies is the integration models. Have they the skills to integrate these different stakeholders, these different technologies, these different capabilities? So I'm going to throw that over to you, Marta.
Absolutely. I would say bottom line, it's our mindset. It's a mindset in digital transformation and in creating platforms, which is the most important and most challenging to overcome. That's why I say, I mean, you need really the top level to buy in and to say, I love platforms. I just love it. Yeah. So.
And Marta, in that context, so we need to rethink how we look at the firm, because traditionally it was, well, how big is it? How many employees has it got? How many this, that, and the other? I think what you're saying, actually, this is about resource orchestration. Those who can master the orchestration actually will control the market in the future. Is that fair?
And those, absolutely, those also who have, I mean, we call it open source in banking, we call it also partners. You want open architecture, you want partners because they are part of this interaction field. They create the connection. And that's the beauty also, the next level of the platform where I see it is Metaverse, yeah. So I think the best example right now, the most advanced, is not Facebook or Microsoft, is really the games. So if you think about it in terms of the games as a platform, then, and what they do is not only gaming. So first start with what they are good at, again, the core, which is the gaming. They have 3 billion gamers worldwide, 3 billion. I mean, just imagine, it's amazing. So forget Facebook for a moment, because that's still growing. And Facebook obviously has realized that. 3 billion gamers, and what they offer is not only gaming. What they have started to offer other experiences. So you have the concerts, you have Ariana Grande, you have Travis Scott. So what you make, again, you make this from your core, you have ecosystem partners. Like Lego, you have Minecraft, you have Tencent, and here you have Ariana Grande, you have Travis Scott. Over 40 million people looked at this, you know. So, and they love it because you are close to the action, you are close to the party, you are doing things which you can't do right now in more normal life. COVID obviously also had a certain effect. And you have other experiences in the metaverse. So you can go shopping. Walmart has a big shopping experience. So it's all totally changing what experiences are. But I do believe that gaming is a very good place to start when you look at really go into a deep dive what they do, and a lot of obviously learnings from gamification, what people love, what they don't love. So it's far beyond gaming, because you have also the play to earn, which I find amazing. So if you have the Axie game, So no matter what they sell or buy, but this has saved a whole country in the Philippines because they were selling and buying on Axie, and in particular selling, and they could convert this to real currency. Yeah, so it's not only the game currency, they make it a currency. And there was a very funny story because there were everyone from child to old grandmother involved in some of the families. And remember, Axie works with cryptocurrency, works with blockchain. Yeah, so we always think the customer consumer needs so much time in financial services. We have so much trouble to explain this to them. They were just in gaming naturally. They were just using it. So you don't think about the tech, you just do the experience. And they were so busy with it that a bot from Axie was actually highlighting this. They had 24 hours on that game. It's impossible that one gamer can do this. And they had to do a video from a neighbor that this is all solid because they're using one gamer, but it's an entire family involved, which was completely legal. But they actually thought there is someone who has hacked our system and is going against us because he plays 24 hours. But in terms also what it tells us, adoption of new technology, blockchain, crypto, NFTs, and the like, is the experience, is not the tech, which is relevant.
Yeah, and look, I have two gamers in this house here, and you know they are totally comfortable with the experience they get and the friendships and relationships they have online. And is that a major challenge for people who are not of that age, because they don't think the way these young people think? They don't use technology the way young people do it, and therefore, is there a challenge for them to actually understand the gap and to address it?
You have to be part of this. So think about your parents. I mean, I'm very fortunate because my mother uses WhatsApp, has an iPad, but her friends don't. So think about 82-year-old who is not using WhatsApp, who is not using online banking. That's you. Yeah. I mean, if Tony, it's not you, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you have to get comfortable with it, and you have a great advantage because you have this in your family. So don't reject, try to embrace. Obviously, there are also a lot of things where in my family, we have also gaming, I would say sort of gaming addicts, very young ones. So that's a real problem, yeah, because it's like a drug. So there are also things where as a parent, you have to be careful, but I think the more you get into that, the more understanding you have of what's going on as a parent, but also in business. Just remember, all the experience your consumer makes are so-called liquid experiences. Mm-hmm. So they have the Netflix experience, they have the Apple experience, they have the Google experience, they have the Amazon experience, they expect everything they get there, and now they have the Fortnite experience or Roblox.
And just on that, and I think it'd be probably remiss of us not to mention it in a way. Also, people's, I suppose, perspective on platforms has been a bit colored and from maybe issues within the gig economy. Marta, any comments on that?
You mean that is all a bubble and will go, or
yeah, or in terms of labor law and I suppose issues around data privacy, those
are huge issues. And I think the challenge for regulators is really, like Tony here was just saying, should we be busy with understanding? Yes, not only us, but the regulator. Can you imagine how much struggle he has to understand the metaverse? Because the metaverse is not one metaverse, it's so many different things, and it's all developing and growing in different directions. So you have privacy and data laws, but they are not adapted to what is happening now. So you have exponential growth where everything goes like woo, and then you have regulation which goes like, okay, following, oh my God, something happens, I have to do something. So it's very reactive. It's not part of the game, in quotes. It's not part of this regulatory, it's not part of this move which we see in growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably Europe has been very proactive, and maybe that is one of the differences between Europe, the US, and maybe China, really proactive maybe in trying to look at that bigger vision, about what these platforms.
With GDPR and so on. I mean, they're really trying with the Digital Act. They are really trying, but I do think still there's a huge gap because, I mean, they don't have the expertise. Yeah, how can you have the expertise if you are not a gamer, or if you are not, they are not in Decentraland, they have never bought a virtual property, they think it's, oh my God, this is, I don't understand it. I mean, they're trying to, I'm probably too harsh, but I do think that there should be also more interaction between regulators and industry experts. So Facebook has someone for ethics, he comes from politics, he's trying to do exactly that. But this is only a small portion. You really need to have kind of advisory boards where they are together and where they think about how can we protect children, for example. This is a huge issue because we haven't seen, I mean, as I said, gaming is so dangerous in one sense, but people just, I mean, they just let their children game because it's child suitable. But there is much more coming now. So also for parents, I mean, this world is incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Mm. And one very interesting point, and I'll hand back to you then, Tony, because I think we have about 4 minutes left, is there's a sort of a move in Europe towards investigating cooperative platforms, where the platforms are actually owned by the workers, which is sort of very much in keeping with that cooperative movement in Europe that goes back a few hundred years. So I think there's some really interesting stuff happening in Europe as well, but it tends to take on a very different flavor maybe to what is being discussed in the US and China. Tony, back over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you
1 second. I just do one sentence because you mentioned the community. So obviously we should then mention also decentralized autonomous communities, which are, or DAOs, which are like Decentraland is not owned by Facebook Meter, it's owned by the community. But with that, Tony, over to you.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. I was going to ask you to sum up in one sentence. Biggest opportunity and biggest challenge for platforms in the future.
So the biggest opportunity, the next evolution, is the metaverse, and the biggest challenge is Metaverse, because to grasp what it is, what it means for your company, and what all the possibilities are. I mean, you were at one of my sessions, you saw it's so wide. So you have to focus on what am I good at, and what is my core value, what is the soul, and how can I do and create a better world. That should be my ambition.
Super.
Yeah, I really like bringing it back to that word soul again, and about creating real value, and multi-sided value, and really that the business models that will succeed in the future, I'd agree, Marta, are those multi-sided business models that really look at value through different lenses for multiple stakeholders. So we're just literally coming up to the mark now. It's been an absolutely fantastic session, Marta. I've pages again of notes here. I'm sure it's going to take me a while to process them. Some excellent references to other readings as well that I think that can be really important. I also echo your point that if we want to succeed in this space, not just CEOs, we need to know and think in terms of platforms, that platform mindset that you spoke about. Marta, where can people find more about you and what's, I suppose, on your mind and what you're discussing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm most active, so please follow me. We have also, you will see, I've already done a post, Metaverse event, so in Decentraland shortly. So join this event. It's not, it's a first experience. We are exploring it. It's a party with a DJ and crypto. Wow. It's called Crypto Night because we also have a crypto launch. So please join me. You will get also an invitation on LinkedIn. And thanks a lot, Patty, to you and Tony for giving me this amazing opportunity to talk about what is very close to my heart.
Yeah, and I know it's going to have a big impact on many people here today, but also people that'll be watching it. Tony, over to you.
Look, yeah, Marta, listen, absolutely superb. I'm a big fan of your work anyway, so it was a real thrill to get you here today. Fantastic session, really fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So I want to thank you. I want to thank our colleagues of the Digital Transformation Lab and Cork University Business School for its support. And I want to thank our audience. Great questions coming through and great support as always. So thank you very much and have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks to the audience.